I want to read this memoir. It was published in January 1991 in the magazine Inroads, Men, Creativity, Soul. And the title is Out of Kingman. I had hitchhiked from Phoenix and was heading for Los Angeles. I stood outside Kingman, Arizona on a Sunday morning and watched churchgoers and breakfast-bound travelers drive by with purposeful expressions. Not 5 minutes passed when a faded blue 1964 Oldsmobile choked to a stop beside me. 3 kids, about 18 years old, sat stoned in the car and offered me a ride. I took it. The pretty girl with knotted blonde hair and haughty, greasy features sat alone in the back seat and opened the door for me. In the front, a curly-haired boy with salminio eyes and a pouty mouth drove with his hand on a steering wheel knob. A scrawny boy with sandy hair, wolfish eyes, and no chin huddled on the other side beneath a jacket. The car was cluttered with hamburger wrapping papers, crushed cigarette packages, and a pair of plaid cardboard suitcases. As I settled beside the girl, she spoke sleepily to me. "We're headed for Pomona, California. Where are you going?" "L.A.," I answered. "Do you live there?" "No, I'll pass through." "I'm going to live out there and see some people." "Fine. Where are you coming from?" I asked. "I've been living in Denver for a few months." "You must have been driving for a while." "Oh, yeah. These 2 guys picked me up outside of Denver. We are all headed the same way. I guess hitchhiking is the best way to go." "It's the cheapest," I said, "but I think I've had enough. This is going to be my last trip." And I meant it. The Arizona State Police had questioned me as a suspect in a bank robbery because I wore a blue t-shirt and had a beard. Although I had been in Mexico when the robbery occurred, and my visa clearly showed this, the police delayed my release. Now, headed to L.A. with little cash, I was ready to stop my wandering. "Listen, we have to stop at my dad's place and get some money from him. Then we'll hit the road again. It won't take but a couple minutes. I used to live about 10 miles outside of Kingman. Is that okay?" she asked. "As long as you're going west, everything is fine." I pondered this conversation and hoped she might tell me more, but I did not feel overly inquisitive. You have to play things by ear when you're begging for rides. Her new friends had not said a word. They merely smoked a cigarette, passing it back and forth like a joint. They smelled of stale marijuana and spilt beer. Hamburger aromas mingled with other scents. They had obviously spent the night in the car. Suddenly, she became bright-eyed and spoke in a false childishness. "Gosh, I haven't been home for 8 months. I hope my mother has some cash." She said no more. Outside of Kingman, they turned off the main highway, the girl directing the driver with short, snappy words and hand signals. We drove into the desert for about 10 miles before the car pulled beside a new trailer house. The girl told us to stretch our legs while she ran into the house. A tall, bronzed man about 40 years old stepped from the door onto the steps. The girl turned bouncy and hugged the man artificially. He frowned and quickly stepped away from her, then walked to the garage. I heard him say that he had to change the oil in his pickup. I walked to the corner of the lot as far from the trailer as I could get. The 2 boys stayed in the car for a moment. Then the girl, who had gone into the house, reappeared and called to the guy with the Sal Mineo eyes. He trudged into the house while the others slid further down into the seat. His shoes poked through the open window, soles toward the sun. The sun's heat wrapped around my shoulders like an old sweater. At my feet, twinkling flashes of light bounded from the rock bits. I had a Time magazine in my bag, so I began to read out loud to a pair of white rabbits in a wired hutch. Reading directed my mind away from the situation and obliterated any misgivings I had. The buck rabbit sniffed displeasure. The doe quivered. I had trouble concentrating. On another day, I might have spoken to the man under the truck, his boots thrust out like two lonesome boulders. He worked but 20 yards down the fence line. I stood and wanted to leave, but knew it was best to wait for this ride. I knew what she said was true, and I would be in L.A. by nightfall. Beside the hutch, I tried to feed my composure on Arizona sunlight. Standing relieved some of the tension coiled in my legs. It was quiet, no breeze, silent rabbits, a clank of a wrench on an oil pan, a scuff of boots in the sand. The man raised himself from under the truck, glanced at me sideways with a quick, negative look, and trod into the shed. The girl had not explained my presence to him, nor did she say anything about the company of the two boys. I didn't know if the man cared to know us or not. I doubted that he did. I thought the man should act stronger, but the pretense of the work only accentuated the complexity of this situation. He did not want me in his yard, and by the looks of it, he did not want his daughter there either. His calm distrust did not signify strength, nor did it alleviate my discomfort. I breathed deeply, absorbing the warm air into my lungs. Then I exhaled an equally tepid breath. My arms loosened a trace, and my legs relaxed just enough to forget about the kinks. Still, I felt the confinement of the fence, and I could understand the complex emotions this father felt for his runaway daughter. The anger, the disappointment, and hatred hung over the man like gnats. The ruddiness of his complexion had paled to an ashen hue when he first saw the girl. Later, the red face blazed with ferocity. Desert vegetation and dry grains of sand extended for miles until a hill grappled with the dull blue of the north sky. I sat down on an upturned water pail and tried to read. My thoughts shimmered with iridescent dryness, like a mirage over a burning landscape. I needed a dark concentration, but an uncontrolled lift of my eyes drew my thoughts toward the trailer in the shed. With a force of will, I looked back at the magazine. The lines jumped and wrestled with my willpower. I fought to set the words of the page in their correct juxtaposition. They yielded, and I completed the paragraph. Although I knew I would not approach the man and would try to stay out of his problems, I felt an urge to tell him everything I knew. How I was hitchhiking, coming back from Mexico after 8 months away, how I had just been picked up, how his daughter talked to me, how her friends said nothing to me yet, how the car smelled of female wetness and the faint sense of leftover lovemaking, how the girl was headed for Pomona, where she would probably split from the boys, how I knew well the desperate type of girl she seemed to be, how she planned on getting money from her mother to make her way quickly to the coast, how, in a matter of minutes, I felt that I had absorbed the sad dreams of the trio, and how I remember my own days of running. But he didn't need any explanation or exposition. A man who knows his daughter is on the lam must cradle his own ache, and this man held his sad reality and let it leak through his demeanor. On this day, any attempt at solace would twist into sadism, and soon enough I would have to face my own father. The trailer door opened. The girl leaped over 2 steps. She didn't even say goodbye, and we were off with $25.